I want to talk today about some different things, about karma, reincarnation, and something maybe I haven't directly talked about, and I feel like doing it today. And some people say to me, well, Linda, you can't read the Akashic Records. That's not how it happens. Well, I can. And the thing is, I don't see everything. Who does? It's only opened, well, if you have right intent, and it can be closed. The records can be closed if a person is using it for harmful ends or, for control. And I'm using it for, to help myself, to help others, to further my project, which is a lofty goal. But so, and we see, it's like a need-to-know basis. What do we need to see? And things are sometimes revealed bit by bit. And what can we handle? And not everybody wants to read the records. I mean, a lot of people don't want to know, but I asked to know. See, that's the thing. I've been told that when I incarnated this life, I said, let me see past lives, let me see the records so I can make use of it. So anyway, that's what I'm here doing. I do catch a lot of flack, and I think I'm just ahead of the curve a little bit. Certainly people can read the records, people have known about reincarnation, but for a lot of people, they still think it's, woo-woo and show me the proof. Well, maybe that's what I'm doing today, is a little bit of show the proof. And so anyway, this is where this is going. And for also people that say, well, Linda, you always think you were somebody very glamorous and, this and that, or important, or Donatella. Last life I was an Amish man. So this is, somewhat, I mean, not exactly. My name was Jacob, and I suffered some tragedies, and I really set the record straight. I dealt with a lot of my debts, karmic debts. So Jacob, shout out to Jacob, he was awesome. And, quiet man, of course. I had a lot of secrets. The Amish community had a lot of secrets. I knew the secrets, but I also knew other things that were not really of my community. But, so anyway, shout out to Jacob, massive master. I actually was a master. I was very quiet. Nobody really knew what I was up to. And so that's it. And also was a writer. I wrote in a diary. Secrets. I've always been a writer. People that don't have somebody to talk to are writers. And a weird thing, when I was in art school, oddly enough, I dressed up as, see, there's always clues. I dressed up like my freshman year, and I was so skinny. I was real thin. So, I had no boobs, no hips. So I looked like a man, or a boy, and I dressed up for Halloween as an Amish man. It was the worst costume ever. I somehow had, I was in art school, so I had turpentine or charcoal, and I put cotton balls in charcoal, and I tried to tape them to my face. Very odd. They were kind of falling off at the party. Wow. So anyway, what would possess somebody to do this? Jacob was coming through, remember me. And I was born not far, in Pennsylvania, not far from the Amish. So anyway, that's that. And one thing I want to talk about besides the Amish is a couple lives before I was Amish. It was a very significant life. And when I was Marie Degas, and Marie has gone down in history as Franz Liszt's bitter mistress. And of course, that's not the whole story of Marie. Why was she bitter? Well, Franz was a horrible, he was a brilliant musician, of course, genius, and kind of philanthropist in his way, but he was not kind to the mother of his children. When we had the 3 children, Franz kind of became undone, and the children were out of wedlock. I couldn't get a divorce because it was a Catholic country, so our children got lost in the shuffle, and into very negative things with them. But anyway, this is, I just want to talk a little bit about Marie. And here she is. And like my nose, my mother had a nose like this in this life, but if you take away the nose and people, because I have a short fat nose, if you take away the nose and people said that Marie had tragic eyes. I do, you know, I also have like a very, very sad eyes, and she was very serious, and she was a writer, but she's not really known for, it's actually said that her writings on the French Revolution are the best, but she's not really credited. There was a big critic, a man, of course, that she did not sleep with, and so he put her on the, you know, he didn't promote her, and she was somewhat talked about as an overly ambitious, very bitter woman. Well, she was just a woman writer, and if she'd been a man, and she was very aware of the sexism that she faced at every turn. But anyway, this is Marie. This picture here, I look, when I was younger, I looked way more like that. It kind of slumped a little bit. Marie was very tall. And anyway, so that's that. And then what I want to talk about is Franz, Franz Liszt, God's Gift. Oh my goodness. You know, I was in an unhappy marriage. Marie was unhappily married. And of course it was the karma for me to have made that marriage and to run into God's Gift. And wow, he was ethereal. He was an angel. Also the devil. Marie said, well, also the devil in there. And it's my son now, Kevin, who is a special angel. And the results, you know, the long nose, the regal. Kevin is very regal with the mane of hair. And when he was very depressed in high school, and Kevin is a channel, Kevin is a genius. When he was very depressed in high school, somebody gave us a piano. It was like, you know, the hand of God, and he started playing. And he didn't know how to play. He was 14 and a half, but he would play in the dark. He would just, the melodies, and I knew something's happening. He's showing something, and the piano had been his lifeline, you know, several lifetimes. He played for a few years. He was playing, you know, started piano at age 14 and a half, and in 9 months was playing Bach fugues. And Chopin was really who he channeled. And his piano teacher, who grew up in this house, see, there's always a threads, said, you don't understand, Linda. This is, nobody does this, and you know, he is a genius, but he doesn't want to play piano this life. He played it last life too. That was a whole different story. The piano to him is done, so he's searching, he's on a search. But anyway, that's that. And oh, in my notebook, my writing, you know, Marie was a writer. Actually, she died writing. She lived a long life, and she actually was writing her memoirs and writing she was like in her 70s or almost 80, and she was actually recasting her relationship with Franz. There'd been a lot of bitterness. She was recasting him in a kind light, and Marie wasn't that bad. She wasn't that bad. She just got screwed by Catholicism, the patriarchy, and you know, misogyny and sexism that said that Franz could do no wrong. Well, he did do a lot of wrong, particularly in the relationship department and the fathering department. He did horrible betrayals, and he didn't even want his children. He didn't even take care of his children, and he used his name was on the birth certificate. He kept Marie's children from her, and so she couldn't even get to her children. He even moved them from France to Germany. If they tried to find Blandine, little Blandine, that was, Marie said that was her favorite, and Blandine and Cosima went to find their mother in Paris, and they found her, and you know, Blandine, I can read it in all the books, and Blandine said, oh Papa, she wrote, you know, Franz, you know, oh Papa, we found mother. And they were so happy, and Franz's response was to take the girls and move them from France to Germany. They didn't even speak German, but he didn't care. He just wanted them away from that woman. And it was just a strange thing that Marie went from being a goddess and, you know, the love of his life and the mother of his children, to that woman who wasn't allowed to see her children. So there was a lot of strangeness on his part. Sometime I would like to write a biography with a historian about looking at Franz Liszt. He's actually the most written about composer. I have multiple biographies, like 700 pages each, and 3 volumes, set Alan Walker, and he researched it for 25 years and went to records in the Vatican to get the full expose on Franz. And what he comes up with in the intro is that Marie was a bitter woman who would have had a hard time wherever she went. So, you know, stop throwing Marie under the bus and look at Franz. And, you know, but again, this is part of the misogyny that a man, particularly a genius man, you know, he does his thing. He's, you know, giving to the art world, to the music world, to society and civilization. Why do we care what he does with his children? And whereas a woman who tries, as Marie did, to further the needle and talk about women's rights and talk about women's education and sex education and voting rights, and she actually wanted to be a politician, but of course no, she had to, but she had salons and was friends with all the revolutionaries and the great minds of her time, but she was trying to be a larger figure in her times and further the needle, and she got called a bad mother. Franz kept her from her children, and a bitter woman. So it's the way, you know, sexism works, misogyny works. But I want to talk about little Blandine and another proof. You can't really see this picture of Blandine so much. She was a sweetheart. She looks a little bit sad here. I think she always was a little bit sad. Well, Mommy and Daddy were fucked up. And she had that long nose, like Franz had a long nose. Marie had a long nose, so she inherited that long nose, and she's back as my little darling now. And you can see the resemblances in the facial features. But anyway, that's what I was going to say, and I wanted to do a shout out. There was a crazy man who really got excited about my YouTube channel yesterday, and because I can read the records, I realized that, well, one, he had known me a couple times, but one time he did know me was as Marie. And there was a funny story that happened. Marie wrote under the name Daniel Stern because a woman would not be considered as a legitimate writer. You know, George Sand also wrote, you know, as a woman that wrote under a man's name, but people knew. George got away with it. But Marie, so there was a Paris publishing office, and the men were sitting around and reading Daniel Stern's essays about, you know, the revolution, or also about culture. Wrote a lot of things about museums, operas, music. Marie was extremely well educated and a great mind. And so these men were reading Daniel Stern's writing and admiring it and said, oh, we must publish him. And the publisher was like, oh, you know, he is a man to admire. His mind is a mind to admire. And somebody said, because I can see this, and somebody else corroborated it for me, somebody said, well, you know who that is? That's Marie Degas. And it was thrown down as if it was tainted, and of course that did not get published, and the men all laughed, you know, laughed about Marie and the troubles she had with Franz, and she was getting thrown under the bus in Paris society because Franz had dumped her and she was so bitter and this and that. But anyway, the man yesterday, I don't even know his name, doesn't even matter, he went pretty much crazy, like obsessive with me and typing away all kinds of things in a very intellectual manner. So, you know, he thought he was an intellectual, and he started accusing me of having big dick energy and being the man of the house, and then calling me sir. I don't know if you're sir or madam. Bingo. Daniel Stern. And so he knew me as Marie. He knew my writing as Daniel Stern, and my ambition and my mind is what did him in. And his last retort was calling me a narcissist, and Marie was called a narcissist. And you know, an ambitious woman is called a narcissist. Was Franz Liszt considered a narcissist? No, he was considered a great man and an artist and a genius, giving of his soul back to the world. And you know, Franz could do no wrong, but a woman, of course, pretty much everything she does is wrong. When she steps out of the role of the little woman and tries to take a larger stage. And so shout out to being a narcissist, and shout out to Marie. And anyway, that's it. And I will prevail.